Welcome to the John Cady podcast. I'm John Cady, retired U.S. Navy veteran, former minister, and a man who's seen and experienced quite a few things. As I get ready to wind down for the night, I thought I was going to be done, but this has been on my mind for the last couple hours at least. It's memories about something that most people under the age of 30 probably have never even been to. I'm talking about drive-in theaters. Yes, once upon a time, there were movie theaters around the country where you could park your car, hang a speaker in the window, walk over to the concession stand, walk back, and you just kick back and relax in the comfort of your own vehicle while watching a movie. And in this podcast, I'm going to be talking about basically memories of going to the drive-in. Some of my earliest childhood memories involved going to the drive-in with my dad. I was about 3 going on 4 years old. This is in the later part of 1966. And my dad at the time had this powder blue Fiat 500. Now, if you've ever seen an old Fiat 500, they're real small. They are just real small. They got an engine that is fairly easy to remove and pull out. My dad used it as his work car, but of course, being that it was an older Fiat, he had a lot of problems with it. But it was still fun for father and son trips, especially when it was nighttime. My mom wanted to just, kick back and relax for a little bit, so it was just me and my dad. We went down to the Starlite Drive-In. A lot of my memories that I'm going to be sharing are going to center around that particular drive-in because this was in Fairmont, West Virginia, about a mile and a half from where my parents lived. And it was fun. They had, amusements there for the kids. My brothers and I would have fun on those. But in that very first trip to the drive-in, that was when I was introduced to the legendary Clint Eastwood. There was a spaghetti western playing that night at the Starlight Drive-In. In this case, it was The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. And it was just my dad and I then. My brothers hadn't come along yet. And it was a fun movie, but I could only remember bits and pieces of that evening, largely because I was just a little kid. And what happens when you take your children with you to the drive-in, especially in the evening? Well, most of the time, they fall asleep. Sorry about that. But as, the movie played through, and at some point I dozed off, and this is where you get the joke about how children have this wonderful ability to teleport. They fall asleep somewhere and then they wake up and they're back home. Well, that happened here. Movie ended and my dad, pulls into the driveway and says, "Son, wake up. Movie's over. We're home. It's time to go to bed." Rub the sleep out of my eyes, go upstairs and, pass out for the rest of the night. But it was fun. Those were good times. Of course, then the Fiat finally got traded in for a larger vehicle once we learned that Mom was pregnant with my brother Eric. And then, later on, with my brother Daniel. So now, movie nights came along at the drive-in, and my dad would be driving a bigger car. It was a Buick. And all 3 of us would be in there with him. And we got introduced to other great Western and action heroes, such as Steve McQueen. And we got to watch Dustin Hoffman. One movie in particular I remember watching with him, with all 3 of us in the car, was the Steve McQueen, Dustin Hoffman movie, Papillon. That was an intense movie, especially as a kid. And yes, it was rated PG at the time. And these would be the kind of fun memories we'd have. And then as I got older and reached the point where I was graduating from high school and was able to drive and take myself places, the Starlite Drive-In was there too. And sometimes my interests, especially when I was starting college, I'd pull in, watch a horror movie or two, including the Friday the 13th movies. And of course, I was a little bit of a prankster too. I'd be walking around with a flashlight trying to find out what kind of activity was going on. Oops! I wasn't exactly a good kid at times, so I had my prankster moments. So the drive-in, of course, what brought a lot of fun memories. And, just be able to sit out there in the open. And when we moved, after I retired from the Navy and moved to Maryland, there was a drive-in theater not far from where I lived in the Baltimore area. It was called Bengies Drive-In. That one is still in existence. Starlite closed down a long time ago. It is long since faded into history. But Bengies Drive-In is still going strong. It's one of the last remaining drive-ins in the country. And I got to enjoy some good movies there. The loudspeakers that you could hang in the window were replaced by, tuning into an FM frequency on your car radio. And actually, the sound quality was a lot better. You didn't have this grainy sound coming through those old speakers. You had a richer stereo sound in the car. And I got to see a couple movies at that time, including one of the Pirates of the Caribbean movies. And kind of piggybacking on the podcast I did on the pandemic, Bengies Drive-In also served as a celebration of, being able to actually start going places again. And my girlfriend Cassandra and I took advantage of that. And the movie playing there that night at Bengies was Bill and Ted Face the Music. That was the third of the trilogy of the Bill and Ted movies. The previous two were Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure and Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey. And the long-awaited sequel, Bill and Ted Face the Music, it wasn't quite as good as the first two, but given that this was, a chance to actually get out and about after being, limited to where we could go and what we could do, going to the drive-in was a wonderful experience. If you live near a drive-in, I would highly recommend that you do business with them. It's a wonderful family experience. It beats being cooped up in a dark theater, and it has a better atmosphere sometimes than kicking back at home and watching movies. That's fun too, but sometimes being out there in a social setting and being under the stars and watching your favorite movie, that's an experience that a lot of people just have never gotten to enjoy. This is John Cady. Again, like always, hit the like and subscribe buttons. If you enjoy the podcast, looking forward to hearing you again on the next one.